for the last 14 years. I took a short break when I went off to college. So I took about a 4-year break. I went to Otterbein University and graduated with a Bachelor's of Science in Biology and a Bachelor's of Science in Biochemistry and Molecular Biology. So today I'm going to be talking to you all about breed ID and tips and tricks on how to succeed in that. Alright, just a short agenda here real quick. I did my brief introduction. First we're going to go over some study tools, telling the differences between breeds, so breeds that might be harder to identify between others. Then we're just going to quickly run through the other breeds, and then I'm going to give a brief description of some breed ID competition tips. Alright, so some of my favorite study tools that I like to use was Rabbit Tutor and Rabbit ID cards, the ARBA breed ID guides, walking around shows, and then making your own practice guides as well. So one of the best tools that I feel like is out there, and David has really done a lot with this in the last year or so. So back when I was in it, I used to do the Rabbit Tutor ID cards, which basically have a picture of the rabbit on the front, and then on the back it lists the breed, showroom classification, whether it's 4 class or 6 class, and then the registration variety. So this allows you to kind of see the rabbits in a picture form, so that you can study them easily at home when you're not at shows. The other thing that I've seen recently that David has posted a lot about this week is the Rabbit Tutor website that they just got up and running. I kind of clicked through this a couple days ago, and it has some really useful activities on it that really helped you kind of learn new things, especially if you're not super familiar with rabbits. So this is one guide that I really would recommend that you look into, or at least take a look at the website and click around on there and see if you can learn something new. Alright, and then next is the ARBA breed ID guide. This was one of my favorite tools that I used to use when I did breed ID. So it lists all the different breeds of rabbits that are recognized by the ARBA. And then it also lists their all possible showroom classifications, lists whether the rabbit is 4 class or 6 class, and then lists all possible showroom registration varieties. This was really helpful for me in learning varieties that are recognized by each breed. I put the link up here. I'm not sure if, I'm assuming David's going to post the PowerPoint somewhere, so you can click on this link and it'll take you directly to the website. I highly suggest that you look into this, especially if you're going to be competing in breed ID. Alright, and then next, it's just walking around shows. Walk around shows, look at all the rabbits that are there, see if there's something that you haven't seen before, or maybe you haven't seen that variety of it before. Find a breeder, find a judge, find a registrar, and talk to them. Have them help you identify that color, especially if you're not familiar with it. That's going to be one of the best ways to learn, is just by walking around the shows. I know my first ARBA convention, there were a lot of breeds that I had never seen before, because they just aren't shown in Ohio a whole lot. So by walking around the showroom at the ARBA convention, I was able to see a lot of new breeds that I hadn't seen before, and that helped me a lot when I went on to compete in breed ID. Next is making your own study guide. So on the previous slide, there was a blurb in there about taking pictures of rabbits that you haven't seen before, or colors you haven't seen before. And this is where that's going to come into play. Make your own study guide. Take those pictures that you take of the rabbits, put them on a note card, put them on a sheet of paper, list the breed, whether it's 4 class or 6 class, the showroom variety, showroom classification, list all of that on there and use that when you don't have anything else to use. You have note cards, you can study those in the car. You can study them, you know, when you're waiting on your parents at the grocery store, you know, whatever you want to do. So I would highly suggest making your own study guide. Alright, now we're going to get into telling the differences between breeds. So the first breeds that I want to cover are the American and the beveren. These are two breeds that are very easily confused with each other because they're both semi-arch breeds. They look very similar. Americans come in blue and white. Beverens come in black, blue, and white. The real differences are white Americans, they're going to have red eyes. White Beverens are going to have blue eyes. So, have a white rabbit up there, it's got a semi-arch body type. Take a look at the eye color. And then blue Beverens are going to be a light lavender blue. So they're going to be closer to almost a lilac-ish color, but a little bit darker. But you're still going to see that lavender tint to their fur. And then blue Americans are going to be that dark, rich slate blue that you typically see in a blue coloring. All right, next are your Angora breeds. So starting with the English Angora, which is on the top left there, they are supposed to have dense bangs and side trimmings. The ears are supposed to be abundantly fringed and tasseled. And then the giant Angora is going to have noticeable forehead tufts and cheek furnishings. And then the ears are supposed to be lightly fringed and tasseled as well. French Angoras, their heads are going to have side trimmings, and their ears are supposed to be plain or slightly tufted at the tips of the ears. Same goes for satin Angoras, which is kind of what makes those two hard to distinguish between. Usually, English Angoras and giant Angoras are a lot easier to distinguish, especially English Angoras. They look like one big puffball. You can really only see their muzzle. There's not much there. Whereas your French Angora and your satin Angora, you're going to want to try and get a look at the head on these rabbits when you're doing breed ID. The better lighting that you have and the more you look at the head, the more you're going to be able to notice and recognize the sheen. So you'll want to look for sheen on the head and on the ears. Is the best way that you're going to be able to tell the difference between a French Angora and a satin Angora. All right, moving on to Chinchilla breeds. So the Chinchilla breeds, there's the standard Chinchilla. That's going to be your smallest. It's going to have a compact body type. It's going to be 4-class. American Chinchillas, they're going to have a commercial body type, and they're going to be a medium-sized rabbit. They're going to be similar to, your New Zealands, Californians, things of that nature. And then your giant Chinchilla, that's going to be semi-arch, and it's going to be the largest of the Chinchilla breeds. It's going to have the closest coloring to a real Chinchilla color. I threw up a light gray Flemish giant on here as well, because if you get a light gray Flemish giant and a giant Chinchilla in breed ID, they're going to look very similar. So the giant Chinchilla, you're going to want to look for that real rich Chinchilla color, whereas your light gray Flemish giant is going to have, their color is described as light gray with black tipped guard hairs. It's going to resemble more of your typical agouti coloration. All right, mini satins, and Havanas. These are probably the two breeds that are easiest to mix up are your Havanas and your mini satins, because their fur is very similar. So Havanas, they're going to be a little bit bigger than your mini satins. They're going to be at max about 6.5 pounds. They're going to be a compact body type, but they're going to have a luster to the fur. So the fur for Havanas are described as soft, dense, and lustrous with medium length. The head is to be medium, short, and broad. And then mini satins, they're going to be a little bit smaller. Their maximum weight is going to be about 4 3/4 pounds. They're also going to be a compact body type, but their fur is described as having an appearance of distinct, glossy, lustrous sheen. So you should, if you have good lighting, you should be able to tell the difference between a Havana and a mini satin. But oftentimes, in breed ID competitions, you don't get that kind of luck. You don't get the good lighting. So you just kind of have to hope for the best. One of my biggest recommendations on telling these two apart is by looking at the head. So the Havana, theirs is going to be more medium, short, and broad, whereas that mini satin is going to have that rounder, fuller head. All right, Florida Whites and New Zealand's. These can stump kids that haven't seen them before. But in breed ID, they're always going to be using senior rabbits. They're not going to have juniors in there. So it should be relatively easy to tell these two apart. So Florida Whites, they're much smaller. They're going to be 4-class. They're going to be compact. Your New Zealand's 6-class, commercial body type, medium in length. But if you've never seen them before, they can be easily mixed up. All right, and then the lop breeds. So English lops, going to be your biggest of the lop breeds. They're 6-class, semi-arch, and they have very long ears. If you see those ears, it's an English lop. There's no doubt about it. There ain't nothing else like it. French lops, they're 6-class, commercial body type. They're very massive. They're very heavily thick set rabbits. You might get them mixed up with a mini lop. Mini lops, 4-class rabbit, compact body type, but they're still heavy set rabbits. Your French lops are going to be a little bit bigger than your mini lops, so if you get a chance to look at those this weekend, I would highly recommend you do it. Pollen lops, 4-class. They're one of the breeds with the high head mount. They're going to be smaller than a mini lop, but they're still supposed to be heavily thick set rabbits for the standard. And then American fuzzy lops, I threw that one just up there because it is a lop, but it's going to be easily distinguishable from other lop breeds because it has that wool. So if you see a rabbit with lop ears and it has wool, American fuzzy lop. Okay. Alrighty. Checker giants, English spots, Rhinelanders, and Dwarf Papillon. So English spots, they're going to have that long chain pattern going along their sides. So there you're going to see multiple spots and a chain pattern going down the side. Your checker giants, you're going to have 2 spots or a group of spots in a solid color. So if you're not familiar with it, it could be confused with a Rhinelander. They are very similar, but your Rhinelander is going to have a combination of colors. So Rhinelanders are supposed to have 6 to 8 medium-sized spots per side, and you're going to see those spots either in orange or black, orange or blue, a variety of that split. And then your Dwarf Papillon is going to be similar to your checker giant, but on a much smaller scale. They cannot have less than 2 individual spots on their side, and this is one of the newest breeds of ARBA as well. So if you get a chance to look at these this weekend, I would recommend it. All right, Lionheads and Jersey Woolies. So Lionheads, they're not going to have any side trimmings or a wool cap. They're going to have a vein like a lion. So their wool is going to surround their head. Whereas your Jersey Woolies, they're going to have side trimmings and a wool cap. So when you're trying to distinguish the two, really look for the wool around the head of the Lionheads, and then their back is going to be mostly normal fur, and then they're going to have wool side trimmings as well. Okay? All right, moving on to some other breeds that really aren't shown a whole lot in Ohio. You may see them around different shows that you show in different areas. It took me a long time to be introduced to at least the breeds on this slide. It was several shows before I even saw one of these. So in the upper left-hand corner, you have your American Sable. On the upper right, you have your Cinnamon. the bottom left is a harlequin, and then the bottom right is a lilac. So your harlequin isn't always going to appear in this color. So they can be Japanese, which is an orange and a variation of black or blue, etc. And then there's also magpie, which is white, black and blue, etc. for a variety. So you can see that in any combination of colors. All right, and then next, your argent brun, which is going to be on the bottom left there. Champagne d'Argent is going to be on your bottom right. Champagne d'Argents are going to have that mask around their muzzle. So that's a really telltale sign of the Champagne d'Argent is going to be that mask around the muzzle. Next is going to be your cream d'Argent, which is on the upper right corner. Your silver, which is in the upper left corner. And then your silver fox. This is the only breed recognized by ARBA that has standing fur. So it's pretty easy to tell when you're looking at a silver fox because you're going to see that hair kind of stand straight up. Alrighty. Silver martins, triantas, tans, and palominos. So your silver martin is going to be in the bottom right corner. Your palomino is going to be in the bottom left corner. Tans are in the upper right corner, and the triantas in the upper left corner. Triantas have a very bright red coloration. They're described as to be a fiery red, so really pay attention for that color when you're looking for a trianta. They're really not easily confused with red New Zealand. They don't have the same coloring. The triantas, they're going to have a much longer fur, so they have rollback fur. So it's going to be much different than your New Zealand with short hair, flyback fur. All right, and then Rex, Mini Rex, Polish, and Netherland dwarfs. So your Mini Rex and Rex, if you had the possibility of having juniors in here, that would make it very hard to tell these apart, which is why they require senior animals only. With senior animals being in there, you would easily be able to distinguish these two because Rex are much larger than your normal Mini Rex. With senior rabbits being required for breed ID, that's really not something that you're going to have to worry about. Next is the Netherland dwarf. This is going to be the smallest of the breeds recognized by ARBA. And then Polish, they're very compact animals with very short ears. They kind of have a more narrow muzzle as well. I would recommend taking a look at those this weekend as well. All right, next is the Belgian paired Bretagne Petite, Blue Hollister, and Czech Frosty. So your Belgian hair, really big ears, full arch breed. Really not something that you see around here a whole lot. At least the shows that I go to, it's something that you rarely run into. I think I've been to one show this year where I've seen Belgian hares there, so they're not a super common occurrence in our area. Czech Frosties are going to be one of the newest breeds of ARBA. They're going to be that upright cylindrical body type, as well as the Blue Hollister, another upright cylindrical body type. Both of those breeds have massive heads and very thick ears. So that's really something that you're going to want to look for with those breeds. Then Bretagne Petites. They're going to be a full arch breed as well. Very narrow head, short ears, fine and bone. So they're pretty easily distinguishable from your other full arch breeds. All right, then Californians, Himalayans, Blanc de Hotos, and Dwarf Hotos. So your Californians, I'm sure you've all seen those. If you haven't, check them out this weekend. They're going to have the points on their ears, nose, feet, tail. Himalayans are going to have the same sort of point patterns, but they are cylindrical. So when you lay them out, they look like a Pringles can. In a cage as well, you're going to be able to notice that slender body. There's a huge difference between them and the Californians. All right, and then dwarf coat-toads and blonde coat-toads. One is going to be a 6 class. That's going to be your blonde coat-toad. And then your dwarf coat-toads are 4 class. They look very similar because they have the same eye marking. This is the only marking on these animals is the little band around their eyes. So you're really going to want to look closely in the cage during breed ID to see what color that eye band is. In bad lighting, a black can easily look like a chocolate eye band or vice versa. So I recommend really spending some time looking at that eye band if you see one of these in breed ID. All right, and last but not least is your Dutch. I'm very partial to these, so that's why I save them for last. Dutch are very easily distinguishable from other breeds because they are a marked breed. You'll see their blades, cheeks, so they're really easy to tell apart from other breeds of rabbits, but if you've never seen one before, I suggest that you take a look at them this weekend. They're really interesting. It's really hard to make a nice one, so take a look for ones here this weekend. All right, and then finally some breed ID royalty competition tips. Always bring your own clipboard just in case they run out. You don't want to be stuck having nothing to write on. First of all, it's going to make your handwriting terrible to read. They might count something wrong if they're not able to read your handwriting. So definitely bring a clipboard and always bring extra pencils and erasers. Erasers are going to be your best friend. Don't ever write in a pen. Biggest tip, no pens, always pencils. Remember not to talk during the competition and always stay a couple steps back from the person in front of you. You don't want to be accused of cheating. No one wants to be accused of cheating. So leave plenty of room in between you and the next contestant. Don't talk. Leave your phone with a trusted guardian so that you're not getting notifications during the breed ID. Always be respectful for the people putting on the competition. These people are volunteering their time and their money to be here, to put the animals there. So always be respectful, always thank them for their hard work. Same goes for your guardians and advisors. Show committee, these people are people that volunteered their time, their money to put on these competitions so that you guys can learn and advance your knowledge in our hobby. So always show thanks to them, and especially the parents who, drive you to all the shows and everything. So those are my biggest. All right, and then just a brief works cited here. So the pictures were all taken off of the recognized breeds by the ARBA website, and then of course some of the verbiage I used was from the Standard of Perfection. So if you want to refer to anything in there, that's where I found those.